Welcome back to the workshop. Welcome back to Entropy Guitars, to this third episode of my custom Les Paul build. If you haven't watched episode 1 or 2 already, you should probably go back and watch that because there's lots of detail in there about the channel, about the wood selections and everything else like that. But to get you up to speed, if you have been watching, in the last episode, we pretty much got this body shaped out. We got the flamed maple top glued to the Okume body, and we got the control cavities cut into the body too, which is great. And we have some weight-saving chambers inside in the body too to cut down on the finished weight of the instrument. But being a Les Paul, it's going to be a little heavy anyway. They always are. We also got the fingerboard slotted, which was really the start of getting the neck done. And that's where we're going to pick it up today. We're going to start building out more of the neck. If you recall from the last episode, I kind of said that I'd painted myself into a corner by picking a scale length for the guitar I hadn't done before, that we would need to design our own template before we could really make any sort of progress on the neck. And we have to do the neck before we do anything else on the body, because when the neck is made, then we know where to put the bridge. So the neck has to be done next. So you might recall from episode 1, I had this neck blank. This was made for me by a company in Italy called Filbo. It's a 5-piece laminate neck of maple, ebony, and maple. It's 40 millimeters thick, it's about 1 meter long, and it's about 10 centimeters wide. That's how wide I need it to be for my headstock design, because I have my own headstock design. Probably in future I might make them a little wider just so I have a little bit more flexibility, but it will do for today. But we have to make our own neck template, and we're going to do that using the laser cutter here in front of me, which is really quickly becoming one of my favorite tools in the workshop. I love working with this thing because it lets me cut things out not only in wood but also in acrylic, which makes for longer lasting templates. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to really figure out what this template is going to look like, and for that we are going to not use CAD, we're going to use PAD, paper aided design. Yeah, you heard me, we're going to use paper. All right, let's do it. Off camera, I've laid out and designed the entire neck template just on paper with pencil. I realize this may be difficult to see on camera because the pencil lines are so thin, so I'm going to just throw in some footage from my headset camera. Apologies if it's a little shaky, but it's better than nothing, right? So you can see it here. I have my headstock. I have my nut space here for the locking nut, the fingerboard itself, and the neck pocket where it's going to sit into the guitar. The first question, of course, people are going to have if they are designing their own templates is, how do I begin with this? Where do I go? Where do I get my measurements from? Some of them we've already figured out. So when we slotted the fingerboard for the neck, we ended up with the 0 point for where the nut is going to be, just here, and we have our 24th fret. So that's essentially our neck. We know a fret's going to sit in here, so we know this needs to be a little longer to let that fret have something to grip into. It really doesn't matter how much further on you go, because there's really only about 1.5 centimeters here. It's not the end of the world. So all I did when laying out this template was I drew a center line down the middle of this paper. I offered up the fingerboard to it, and I put my nut down here. So I have my starting line of my scale length, and I came down here to the end, and I put just a little mark here to say this is going to be where the 24th fret is. And I left my fingerboard overhang a little bit, and I roughly drew in a line where I think the fingerboard is going to end. That's very arbitrary. I just made that line up. It doesn't really matter where that goes. But now we have 2 reference points, right? So we have our start of our fingerboard and we have our end of our fingerboard. The next measurement that we need to get organized is how wide the fingerboard is going to be at all various different points. There's really 3 points here that are critical. The thickness of the nut, the line where it meets the body of the guitar, and then if you just connect these two and keep drawing this line out, you kind of get your automatic end of your neck pocket and how thick that's going to be, because these lines here, they just protract out following the points they already have from here to here, and you just continue the line out draw a perpendicular line, and then you can get that measurement too. So for the nut, it's very straightforward. We just take our nut and we put it in place, and we know that's 43 millimeters because we've measured it. It's 15 millimeters wide as well, so we draw in a second line here for how thick the nut is going to be. And then this measurement here, I've taken from the guitar itself. So on the guitar, and I'll put a picture of it up on screen now, I've just looked at the center line, taken it to one edge where it meets the edge of the guitar effectively, and doubled that to get about 54 millimeters where it joins the body. And then when those lines protract out, they end up being about 56 millimeters at the end. So now we have this, I guess, parallelogram set up here that allows us to define what that neck shape is going to look like. For the headstock, we're going to cheat a little. This is a Telecaster template that I have from my first build, and it has the string holes in effect in all the right places. So I knew, referencing a center line here, that these will be more or less accurate. I mean, this is a 42 millimeter nut, this is a 43 millimeter nut, so there's not really going to be much of a deviation. So I just placed this down roughly where it needs to be, following up that back position on the nut, and drew in my 6 little tuner slots. After that, well, I was lucky enough when I made my first Telecaster headstock, when I designed my own headstock, to keep a photocopy of what that was going to look like. So I copied this again, cut it out, and just traced it onto the paper here, making sure the measurements were as close as I could possibly get them. One of the learnings I had from my first guitar was when I placed my tuner, well, my last tuner into the headstock, it came awfully close here to the cutaway or the scallop in my headstock. So I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen this time. So I've extended it out a tiny bit. And this really is the advantage of doing things on paper, because this is a 1-to-1 scale and you can put down physical objects on it and see what way they're going to look. So the last thing I just wanted to get a feel for was the truss rod. You might recall in episode 1, I talked about changing the type of truss rod I was going to use, and I have. So I can put this down now. I want the adjuster for the truss rod to just poke out under the nut, and I have a line here at the end where I know that's going to stop. And that's how you make a template. So I hope that made sense, and I hope everything came out on camera. We've taken the complex task of designing a neck, and we have broken it into individual pieces and worked on them one by one, which is pretty much how we approach any complex situation in life. Makes things a lot easier and a lot more simple to understand, and it catches mistakes before they happen. The next thing we need to do is transfer what I have on paper into the laser cutter software. Now, to do that, I use Inkscape. Inkscape is a free software package and it's only 2-dimensional, so there's not a steep learning curve. If you do want to learn it, there is loads of different video tutorials out there all over YouTube. Go watch a couple because it's great software. It also allows me to do things like pull in my headstock here just by taking a photo on my phone, dumping it onto the software and then tracing around it with all the nodes. And then I can pull that into my laser cutter software, and as you can see here on the other side of the screen, I can get a preview of what the laser is going to be cutting as well. And that again just allows me to make sure everything's valid and correct before I hit the cut button on the laser and waste any material. Speaking of material, this is exactly the same as the last video. We're going to cut it in 2mm hardboard first, just to make sure we don't really have any critical mistakes and that we can validate all of the measurements. As part of that then, once we're happy with everything, we can transfer it over to 5mm black acrylic and cut that out and have a permanent template we can work with. That turned out pretty great. I'm really happy with this. This is the 5mm black acrylic. And everything we had on the 2mm hardwood template has transferred over to this. The center line is beautifully laid out. I have my end of my neck pocket line here. My nut lines are in place. All of my tuners are cut out properly as well. And while I was at it, I decided to make a neck routing template as well. And this was really easy to do because all you need to do in the software is bring back up your neck template, draw a rectangle around it, subtract the neck from the rectangle, and you get something like this. Cut it out in 5 minutes on the laser cutter, and together they are such a tight fit, which is what you want from a neck pocket. They go together really well. Okay, well, let's see what the neck template now looks like on the neck blank. That's really exciting. I'm going to put some close-ups on screen, but it looks so good. And it's really making a lot of use of the neck. I realized this template is really long. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a neck through build or not on this. And I'm glad I didn't, because the neck blank actually arrived with a little bit of damage in it from being in the mail. So I need to find the right piece of wood to cut from this. But yeah, putting this down. I don't know how to explain this feeling, but it's really good because this template never existed up until a few minutes ago. And now it's on my neck blank and I'm going to be able to make it into reality. It's really exciting. So all I need to do now is draw a center line on the neck, line up the center line of the template, and I will draw roughly with a pencil line where the neck is going to go. Then what we really need to do is route out the truss rod cavity. So this is just a simple line down the body that we take out the wood from, and the truss rod can sit down in flush with the top of the neck. It's really important that we get this right. It has to be flush, it can't be sticking up, and it can't be too loose or rattly inside, because that will just be a source of noise that gets transferred through the guitar. You don't want that. To do that, I have a jig. I'll show you the jig in a minute because it's actually really, really cool. I made that before, and I'm really excited to use it because I haven't used it yet. After we've got the truss rod routed out, then we'll take the neck blank over to the bandsaw. We'll cut out the rough shape like we always do. We'll put back on the template like we always do with some double-sided tape, and then we'll route it on the router table as well, and probably a little bit with the hand router too, just for convenience. And that should give us a neck that is 40 millimeters all the way through, but at least cut to the right shape. Okay, let's get going. Off the camera, I saved a bit of time and I drew a center line on the neck blank itself on the wood. And then I was able to place my template down that we made on the laser cutter and use its center line to line up with the one on the wood. That way we know everything is perfectly positioned. I drew around that with pencil, and up here at the top of the template, I have a line here that's going to be the end of the locking nut. So I just transfer that over to the wood. And the reason for that then is we can place our truss rod. Now my preference is that the adjustment bolt of the truss rod should go no further than the nut itself. So I can line that up here with that end line that we transferred over from the acrylic template. And that then tells us at the end here how far down we need to go with the truss rod channel. So we can just draw a vertical line here, and that's where our truss rod is going to live. But of course, we need a bit of space to adjust the truss rod with an Allen key. And the easiest way to do that is just to pop the Allen key into the truss rod, see where that ends, leave it another millimeter or two just for access, and draw another vertical line there. So in reality, from here, a little bit beyond the nut, to give us room for that Allen key, down to here is going to be where we need to route out the truss rod channel. I've clamped this jig onto my neck blank, and this jig is designed by Daniel over at Unquendor Guitars, who, if you haven't seen his channel, he's an amazing teacher and he does a full tutorial on how to build this. I think this cost me in total probably somewhere around 30 euros to build. All it is some aluminium angle on the top and the bottom, some bolts and some MDF, and maybe about half an hour of your time. Now that I've it set up, it has a centerline reference too. I should really count how many times I say center line in this video, it's ridiculous. But it is lined up on that center line. And what we're going to do is take the router with the 6mm bit chucked up in it, and we're just going to route out the truss rod channel a bit at a time. I've set a stop block here, so I know I go no further than the end of where that Allen key was. And I know to stop here when the router touches the end of the jig itself to finish the end of the truss rod channel. So we're just going to do it. We're going to take lots of little passes. The depth I need to go, I measured earlier, but if we just want to check it again, it is... it's about 9 millimeters. Yeah, 9 millimeters. There's another part of it has to go a little deeper, but we'll take care of that at the very end. Okay, let's start. Yes, I did change clothes. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I don't mind getting dirty, and we need some eye protection and we need some lung protection. Here we go. Okay, that went not bad. We have a truss rod channel pretty much in the center of the neck. I'm not going to lie, it deviated over here probably about 0.5 millimeter. Nobody's ever going to see it, but it will annoy me until the end of time. That's just down to me not getting this perfectly accurate, which is frustrating because I actually bought a pointed bit for setting this up even more accurately than the jig itself allows for, and I decided not to use it, so that's on me. The next thing we need to do is just route this tiny little silver bit at the top, the bolt itself, a little bit deeper because it needs to sit flush. It's going to go down probably 1 or 2 millimeters more, but I'm going to work it out with my calipers and then I'll just route that last bit out itself. Overall, that went pretty okay. I mean, we did go a little bit over the line here, but it's not the end of the world. Now what we need to do is, because the router bits are round and we need some square edges, we need to square up some edges. So we're going to do that with chisels, and we'll just have some straight lines to give us that edge. And we need to widen this box at the end again for that silver bolt. This jig worked pretty well. I'm not going to complain about it. It did the job. I'll show you on the neck in a second. There are some things I'm going to change on this. The first is that that center line isn't quite centered. It doesn't matter to anybody on the grand scheme of things. It's 0.5 millimeter out on this end, but that 0.5 millimeter will bug me until the end of time, so I've got to fix it. The second thing I'm going to change is that I set it up so that I could use the trim router base, thinking it would be smaller, it would be easier to use, and I could get the depth perfectly accurate easily just by holding whatever I need next to the bit and setting the height. Turns out, yes, I can do that, but it's a lot of faffing about. So I'm going to rework the jig to take this, which is the wider base for my little trim router, and this has a depth stop that I can set. And the idea is I can just put the truss rod into this little depth stop here, and it will cut to the precise depth each and every time. I probably should have done that from day one, but I thought I was being smart and I thought I was keeping the jig small by using this. Lesson learned. That said, it still worked and it still turned out great. So here is the neck blank. I have shortened it a little. I cut the unnecessary section off the end, and there's a channel right here for the truss rod with the wider opening at the top to accommodate the tightening mechanism, but it sits down quite nicely, quite flush, and there's nothing protruding, which means when the fingerboard gets glued on, this is going to work beautifully. And that's what it looks like. The next job we have for this next blank is to take it over to the bandsaw and roughly cut out the shape of the neck itself. So I'm going to start that now and get it out of the way, and then I'll wrap up here for tonight because it is late. I'm incredibly sweaty because the garage is very, very warm, and I'll pick it up tomorrow. The last video where we made the body really went over time by about 10 minutes more than it should have had. I think 40 minutes is probably too long for videos to keep people's attention. That said, nearly 1,500 people at the time of recording this video have watched it, so it went down pretty well. But when it comes to making a neck, we're not going to get it done in one video. This is likely going to take at least 2, but maybe 3 videos because we still have a lot to do. This video, however, didn't go too bad. We made our neck template and we've turned that into a neck blank, roughly done to shape. Well, actually it is done to shape, but we just need to carve the rest of it now and get it set up. So in the next video, we're going to reduce the top of the headstock down a little bit so that it's low and then comes up to the fingerboard. And we're going to take away the bottom part of the headstock as well so that we can curve that down into what's called a volute. And then we can do a neck relief carve here to get that beautiful curve in and get the profile for holding the neck in our hands. We're going to put the truss rod back in. We're going to glue down this ebony fingerboard to the neck. And then because the ebony fingerboard, as you can see here, is wider than the neck, we're going to have to trim that to match as well. Then we need to put a radius into the fingerboard as it's on the top here. And then we need to press in the frets, cut those, dress them, make sure they're smooth. We have to put in our nut. We have to put a veneer on the headstock. We have to put in tuners. So there's a lot left to do. And I do think this will be another 2 videos. But then we should be at a point where we can marry the neck to the body by cutting a neck pocket out. And then that will allow us to get back to the body, putting the bridge in, figuring out where the pickups are going to go and getting some carving done on this. So lots of work ahead of us, lots of time ahead of us. And I hope you'll stick around to see how it all turns out. If you haven't subscribed and you've enjoyed this video, maybe subscribe. If you haven't subscribed and you didn't enjoy this video, subscribe anyway. I could do with the subscribers. I'm really hoping to get to 1,000 by the end of this year. So every single subscription really helps out the channel. But for now, thanks for watching. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.